wearing my emergency medicine shirt. Hey, what's up you guys? It's Milo. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, hi, hello, my name is Milo. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today, I'm gonna be doing a video I've really wanted to do for the past like 2 years, but never got around to doing it, which is an EMS Q&A. So I am an EMT, I'm an advanced EMT, and I've been in EMS for just over 2 years. Right now, I'm taking a break from being on the trucks, and I'm actually working in oncology, with plans to go to paramedic school and go back to EMS as soon as possible. Let's get into the questions. First question is, what is something that surprises most people about ambulances? I'm taking this literally as in like the actual ambulance, the vehicle, not just like the job. But one thing is that ambulances are they're just trucks. They're just trucks. The ones that I had, they were Ford F-350 Super Duties, and they would just take the back truck part off and put the box on it. And that's how you make an ambulance. You just take a truck and you put a box on it instead of a truck bed. We did have one Chevy that was super nice. I got to be in that truck for one day, and it was a push start. I got in the truck in the morning because it was winter time or maybe like spring. It was cold out. And so I got in the truck to turn it on to heat it up while we got all of our supplies for the day. And I'm like, I have the key in my hand, and I'm looking around, I'm like, how do I start this ambulance? Like, there's nowhere to put the key. And then I see a little button, and I was like, no way. No way. I touched it, the truck turned on. I was like, we got a push start ambulance. I thought that was really cool. Another thing is that there are airbags in the back. And for everything in this video, this is speaking from my experience. So I can't speak for every ambulance, every truck. I can't speak for every EMT, every EMS personnel, every agency, whatever. But I'm pretty sure they all have airbags. I feel like it'd be an issue if they didn't. But anyways, they have airbags in the back that come out of the walls. So the way that ours worked were if the truck tipped to a certain angle, so if you get hit and you're tipping over, once it hits a certain angle, I'm assuming that's like calculated as far as if you hit this angle, you're definitely going over, then airbags come out of the sides of the truck so that you don't bonk into the wall. Second question is, what is a common misconception about EMTs? And this answer is not great. But I think a big misconception about EMTs and EMS in general is that these people care. I am eternally shocked by how much EMS people don't care about their patients. You think that the people that are working on the ambulance and showing up to save you really care about your life and you as a person, and they want to save you, but a lot of people are in it because they have like a savior complex, and it's a big ego thing for them. And so if this call isn't feeding their ego, then they don't care, and they're not going to give you the best care that they can. They're just going to make sure that you're alive and whatever, because helping you isn't going to feed into that savior complex, feed into that ego. Especially, I worked with a lot of homeless patients. There was some substandard care that I witnessed, because they weren't, you know, cracking ribs, doing chest compressions, and like pushing drugs. It was just like, oh, you have a wound that's infected and we need to take you to the ER because you need antibiotics, whatever. And that doesn't make you sound like some awesome, cool savior guy. So it was just like, you're so annoying, why are you calling 911? Why did it even get infected in the first place? So I think that's a big misconception, is that these are all caring people. There are very loving, caring, kind, compassionate, empathetic people in EMS, but there are also egotistical assholes in EMS. Next question is, what's the happiest part of being on the ambulance? One of my favorite things being on the trucks was being an FTO. So FTO is Field Training Officer, which means when I get little baby EMTs coming in and it's their first EMS job, they go through 2 weeks of ride-alongs with us before they're allowed to be an EMT by themselves. And so I was an FTO, and I got to train these people. So we'd have them, sometimes we'd have them for 4 days in a row, sometimes we'd just have them for one day because they would bounce around different FTOs. But that was one of my favorite things to do, was to train. I love training people, I love teaching people. I feel like going through training with somebody, like with a newer person, keeps me sharp, because as I'm explaining things and why we do things and how we do things, it's keeping it sharp in my head of why we do what we do, how we do what we do. It's like a constant review that I get to go through with myself. So I really loved training. I also loved being able to help people build their confidence, because most people are just so scared when they come. I was so scared when I came in, and being able to watch them build the confidence to do their job and to do it well, I really, really loved that. Also, just joking around with your partner or your station. You're gonna hear me use the word partner in this video. On the ambulance, there's 2 of you, you're partners. That's what that means. But my favorite memories are just days in the station. Being with everybody in the station, doing just stupid shit. Shooting each other with Nerf guns, or making station dinner, watching reality television, just whatever it is. Those were the best times. And right now, when I'm on my break from EMS, like, that's what I miss more than anything, is just being with the family at the station. Next question is it crowded in the back of the ambulance, or do you feel like you have enough space? So this really depends on the call and the ambulance. So we had a few ambulances that were meant for transporting flight crews, which means you're gonna have a flight paramedic, a flight nurse, sometimes additional people like a respiratory therapist, and then you're gonna have generally more supplies. So that's gonna take up a lot of space, plus you in the back of the ambulance with them. Those trucks were bigger. So when you're in the back of those trucks, they're huge, they're massive. So there's definitely enough space. I took a psych patient in one of those, so we don't have any equipment, it's just the patient, because it's a mental health issue, so there's not medical equipment that we need. And there were 2 of us in the back instead of just 1 because of the nature of what this patient was dealing with. But with 2 of us and the patient and no other equipment, we were in one of these flight crew trucks, and it was huge. Like, I could have laid down on the floor taking a nap, there was so much room. Most ambulances though, they're a little crowded, but also you get used to it. It is enough room, but if you are on a call, like if you're on a cardiac arrest, there's gonna be a lot of people in the back of that ambulance. There's not gonna be room to move right or left. Like, you're gonna be packed, crammed in there. But on just a normal call, non-emergent call, even some emergent calls, generally you do have enough room. If there's, you know, like 3 of you back there and you're trying to cross paths, you're gonna have to make contact with each other to get past each other. But other than that, generally there is enough room to do what you need to do. Next question is, do people freak out about the cost of the ambulance? And my answer is no, and they should be. So many 911 calls, I would say the majority of 911 calls, people didn't need to call 911, don't need an ambulance, and don't even need to go to the ER. It's appalling to me. Like, I had one call, I had just witnessed a really traumatic call involving a child. Immediately after that, I had gone to an obvious death. And then immediately after that, we get called to a sick person for a cough. A cough. You called 911 because you have a cough? Like, BFFR. I was not in the mood that day, but I'm like, whatever, reset. You don't get to carry your bad mood onto this call. This guy doesn't know that you've had a bad day, and it's not his fault. Well, it is a little bit his fault because he's calling me for a cough, but whatever. We're like, what's going on? You have a cough? He's like, yeah, I have the flu. How do you know you have the flu? Well, I went to the doctor yesterday and he told me I had the flu. I'm like, okay, that's why you're coughing. Mind you, he's not having like respiratory distress, his oxygen's great, he just doesn't enjoy coughing. And so we're like, so you want to go to the emergency room? And he's like, well, yeah. We're like, what do you want the emergency room to do? He's like, well, help me, I have the flu and I don't feel good. I'm like, homie, mind you, I also had the flu at the time. Okay, so they can't do anything for you. Like, the ER doesn't have a secret flu cure that you can only get if you go there by ambulance. Like, they're not going to do anything. Whatever. He's arguing. I'm like, girl, I don't care. Let's just go to the ER. We took him to the ER. But there's so many calls like that where I'm like, you know this is going to cost $5,000, right? Like, people call for stupid things, and they don't need to go to the ER. They don't need an ambulance. They definitely should not have taken up 911's time with this call. And also, if they really do feel like they need to go get seen, they have a vehicle and they have the ability to drive. So why are you calling an ambulance? And I always just want to bring it up and just be like, this is going to cost you $5K. Like, you really want to go through with this? They don't care. People do not care. Very rarely someone will be like, usually a younger person, will be like, I don't want to pay for the ambulance. And most of the time I'm like, that's fine. Because, again, they didn't need an ambulance. I'm like, go in your car. That's chill. Very rarely does somebody need to go via ambulance and they're like, no, it's going to be expensive. Usually, people just go. They don't care. Next question is, how do you navigate long shifts? So I used to work 24-hour shifts. Short answer, caffeine, nicotine, and Adderall. Really healthy for me. And protein bars and protein shakes, because you know you're not going to have time to eat a real meal. The way that I did it was, I did what's called awake naps. because I can't sleep without my sleeping meds, and I can't take my sleeping meds at work because then I will be asleep and you will not be able to wake me up. So I can't take naps like most people can in between calls and kind of recharge. So I did awake naps, which is where I pretty much just pretended to be sleeping. But I would get into such a relaxed, almost asleep state that my Fitbit would count it as sleep. So it works. But yeah, pretty much I would just, any chance that I got, I would just lay down in my recliner. We had beds, but the room with the beds was really creepy, so I didn't like going in there. I'd lay down on my recliner and close my eyes and just like breathe and be like, okay, I'm sleeping now. And that's how I would get my rest. It got to the point, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and so it got to the point where it would be like, I'd be sitting at the dining room table with everybody and I'd be so fatigued and I'd be like, oh, I need to eat something, I haven't eaten enough, I'm gonna be fatigued if I don't eat. But I'd be so tired, I was like too tired to eat. So I would sit like this with my eyes closed and I would do my awake nap while I ate. And then everyone at the station would make fun of me for sleep eating. But like, you gotta do what you gotta do. Speaking of eating, making sure you're getting enough calories and protein, carbs, all your macros during the shift, which is why I ate a lot of protein bars, because if I could get a meal, then I would eat a meal. Most likely, I was not going to be able to get a meal, in which case I would slam a couple protein bars. You're not gonna be able to make it through 24 hours being awake. That's already hard to do if you're eating a normal amount. You're gonna have to eat more. You're gonna have to give yourself more energy, more calories to burn so that you can be awake for 24 hours, and not only be awake, but be working, be alert enough to drive the ambulance, be strong enough to be lifting patients, possibly doing CPR if you get that call. This will be the last question for this video. This one is, how do you navigate burnout? So as somebody that, like I said, is on a break from EMS, that is largely because of health issues. But as I did take that, like, okay, hello, what? As I went through the process of getting a different job and leaving that job for physical health reasons, I realized how much my mental health really had been impacted. So as far as burnout goes, how I manage burnout apparently is burning myself out until I have to leave the job for a period of time. But for the longest time, I would save up my PTO. I'm not big on vacations, like traveling. I don't enjoy it, so I don't have a lot of use for my PTO. I would save it up, and then when I felt that I was getting burnt out, and I would start, you know, I'm a complainer, and everyone in EMS is a complainer, so we're always like, I hate this job, I'm gonna quit, whatever, even though we love the job. But when I would be like, I hate this job, I'm gonna quit, like actually, I would take the next week off, and then just have a week off, and recharge, have a break. And so every few months I'd just take a week off when I felt like I was getting burnt out, and that kept me going for a long time. And then it reached the point where I was taking my weeks off to physically recover, and then a week wasn't enough, 2 weeks wasn't enough, and then it was just never enough for me to physically recover. I couldn't get back on my feet fast enough. The other thing for burnout is therapy. I was already in therapy before I got into EMS, but I always tell my trainees when I was being an FTO, they'd say like, oh, what's your advice, what's your advice? And I know that they're looking for advice on like how to put on a tourniquet or something. But the advice I always said was, get a therapist. Get a therapist before you need a therapist. Go establish care with a therapist. If you don't feel like there's anything you need to talk about, just see them once a month. Just so that when something happens and you do need a therapist, you just had the worst call of your life and you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to cope with it, you have a therapist that you can get an appointment with that you already know. Those are all the questions I have for this video. I will make a second video with the rest of the questions, but thank you so much to everybody that asked questions. It really means a lot to me that you took the time to think of something and submit it, and yeah, I appreciate you. If you have more questions that you'd like to see answered in the next video, feel free to comment them down below and I'll add them to my little list in my notebook down there that I have. But thank you all so much for watching this video, especially if you watched it all the way to the end. That means a lot to me also. Leave a like if you would like to. But if you did like the video, leave a like so that I know, and so I know which videos you like and which videos you don't like, so I can make more of the videos that you like. Anyway, also subscribe if you want to subscribe. That would also be super swag. But until the next video, I will see you later, and I'll see you on the streets. Peace out. Bye.
Here's to another sleepless night. Good luck trying to survive. You've been trapped with reality. I hope this isn't where I peak. I see that I'm sick, I'm losing my grip.